Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. Senate confirmation hearings have begun for Trump cabinet nominees, while the repeal and replacement of Obamacare is front and center on Capitol Hill. Mr. Trump also held his first press conference since being elected. Here with analysis is the member of the executive committee of the Trump transition team, Congressman SEAN Duffy. Welcome back to the program.
Raymond, good to see you.
Okay, we've got to get right into this. Donald Trump held his first presser this week, and he was forced to address some lurid details in a supposed leaked intelligence report first posted by BuzzFeed. It allegedly contained information in the possession of the Russians that was damaging to the president-elect. CNN ran a story that the president and Mr. Trump had been briefed on this report. CNN reporter Jim Acosta faced the president-elect's wrath during the press conference. Watch.
I think it's a disgrace that information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up,
sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question?
Go ahead.
No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
President-elect,
Go ahead.
Since you are attacking
no,
our news
not you.
organization,
not you.
Can you give us a chance?
Your organization is
terrible. You are attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir,
quiet. Quiet.
Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Can you
She's asking a question. Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
Attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you stay categorical?
You are fake news.
You are fake news. Wow. SEAN Duffy, I am going to give you a question.
Yes.
Is this going to be normal operating procedure? I have never seen, I dare say none of us have ever seen, a president hold a press conference like this, but it is riveting. And I dare say, politically, this is probably really good for the president-elect.
Well, I don't know, but I think it's bad for Mr. Acosta. I mean, listen, this is the president-elect.
Yeah.
There's a certain decorum and respect that we have to have for one another, and to think that CNN would go after Mr. Trump that way in that fashion, I think is a bit shocking. And I don't think that's going to play well for anybody if that's the flavor of these press conferences moving forward. Again, what happens if a reporter, maybe a Fox News reporter, had gone after Mr. Obama in that fashion? I think Americans would be quite outraged. Yeah. We have to treat, I think, all presidents and all press equally. That didn't happen here, but you're riveting, yes.
Yeah, no, it's
great
riveting
TV.
stuff.
But
well, and I think when you have a president-elect bluntly saying, this is fake news, this is a pile of garbage over here, this is, and let's face it, when we unpack this story, the memo that was supposedly released that BuzzFeed printed ended up being not part of the intelligence briefing. It was a piece of Oppo research they dug up from somewhere. So the threads of this story, CNN inaccurately reported the first half, which was the first movement of this, and then BuzzFeed put the evidence, the so-called evidence, before the public. All of this turned out to be inaccurate.
And I think what you're seeing is a conflation of all these different stories, and really it's hard to figure out what is truth, what isn't, who's reporting what, and so some overarching concerns. The intelligence community is leaking information about their investigations long before the president-elect gets it, long before the House intelligence community gets it, long before Paul Ryan gets it.
Now Clapper said this week he didn't leak it, that the intelligence community was not the source of these leaks.
Well, he can say what he wants, but it looks pretty shady that when information, listen, you have the president, the House and the Senate congressional committees, they all get this information.
Right.
When the House and the Senate haven't received it, Republicans or Democrats, but the information's coming out, maybe Mr. Clapper didn't do it, but someone in the organization is leaking information. So, number one, that
so you think it's an intelligence leak as part of our politicized intelligence agency?
Absolutely.
Wow.
That's one issue. But the second one is, in this highly charged environment, our news organizations have to be better, have to do better. You can only report on stories that you verify. And my concern is that CNN went with a story that was not verified. We expect a BuzzFeed to do this. But a CNN has to have a little bit higher standards, all the media, higher standards before you report it.
Well, Jake Tapper later went out there and he tried to say, oh, we just reported that they had an intelligence briefing. That turned out not to be true either. Yes, that was the first movement of this story, and CNN, in their defense, did not publish this so-called memo, but they gave credibility and the clearance. They cleared the space for BuzzFeed to then publish this. This opens up a public disenchantment and suspicion of the media and media operations. It's bad for the republic at the end of the day.
It's bad for America, bad for politics if you can't trust intelligence and or the media. And I think both of these institutions have to realize what's happening with the people and get back to better basics of your industry of intelligence and reporting news and facts in that sense.
And so many of these hearings were blown away because the only thing anybody got from the press conference was that moment.
One last point. There are stories that should be reported.
Absolutely.
There's some intelligence that should be run down. But if there's an era of politics around it, the good stories and the good investigations can get caught up in the bad political motivations that are circulating right now in Washington and across the country.
President-elect Trump also addressed the issue of his business interests once he becomes president. There's been a lot of talk about conflict of interest. He has too many holdings. Here's what he had to say.
As a president, I could run the Trump Organization, great company, and I could run the country. I do a very good job, but I don't want to do that. And what I'm going to be doing is my two sons, who are right here, Don and Eric, are going to be running the company. They are going to be running it in a very professional manner. They're not going to discuss it with me. Again, I don't have to do this.
He doesn't have to do this. Now, Walter Sharb, who is the director of the Office of Government Ethics, he says this is wholly insufficient, wholly inadequate. Your thoughts?
Well, the question becomes, what would he have Mr. Trump do?
Well, he's putting it in a trust, but it's not a blind trust.
This is a billion-dollar organization. So when you put your assets in a blind trust, when you're done with the presidency, you're going to take them back out of the blind trust, right? That would be the idea.
Trust. His kids are running it. It's not blind. He can still have contact with them.
He's transitioning the company to his sons. That's legitimate. But I think there's a new standard that's coming into play. Are we saying that in America that any elected leader, especially a president, can't have children or parents or siblings or cousins that run businesses because they might have contact with the president? That's a new standard. Listen, Mr. Trump is very clear. He's been successful in business. He's run that course of his life. He's seen America, thought he had something to offer to the country and its greatness, and he ran for president. I believe him when he says, listen, I don't care about this anymore. I've done it. I care about you. I'm going to make our country great. I'm going to help grow our jobs. I'm going to strengthen our military. I'm going to care for our veterans. I'm going to secure our border. We're going to crush ISIS. He cares about where America is going more so, completely more so than the Trump Organization. So I think that the media may try to make this a big story, but you will see Donald Trump's attention focused on the country and America and results.
And the other thing is he is donating any foreign investment or payments to the Trump International hotels. I think all of them, but particularly the one in D.C. He's donating that to the Treasury so that he personally isn't making any money there. But he's also not selling off all of his assets. And it is a curious thing that executives in the West Wing have to sell off everything. But the president doesn't have to, apparently. There's no conflict of interest for him.
Lawfully, he doesn't, but it's really challenging. It's not like you're holding stock.
Well, it's hard.
If you're selling stock in the market, you can do that very quickly. They're very liquid, but these buildings, this business, these are huge deals that you can't get done in a 2-month period of time. So I think the smartest and sanest way to handle it is transfer it to the boys. Let them run it so you can focus on America. And by the way, if there's any overlapping of the Trump world versus the presidential world, the media is going to call them out, and it'll be big problems for him. I think he gets that, and there'll be a bright line between what he does in the White House versus what they do in his organization.
Confirmation hearings were underway this week in the Senate. Jeff Sessions, Rex Tillerson, Ben Carson, General James Mattis, among others, all appeared before various committees. A few highlights. Senator Jeff Sessions, Trump's Attorney General nominee, was grilled by Senator Dianne Feinstein on his stance on abortion. Take a look.
You have referred to Roe v. Wade as, quote, one of the worst, colossally erroneous Supreme Court decisions of all time, end quote. Is that still your view?
It is. I believe it violated the Constitution and really attempted to set policy and not follow law. It is the law of the land. It has been so established and settled for quite a long time, and it deserves respect, and I would respect it and follow it.
Good answer?
Well, listen, you and I both agree that Roe v. Wade is bad law. But it is the law of the land,
yep.
And the Attorney General has to follow and enforce the law. That's his duty. It's our job in Congress.
You, the Congress, make law, and you don't enforce it. He does.
And as pro-lifers, this is not the one you should be concerned about, but the next justice to the Supreme Court. That pro-lifer will matter.
I want to show you this very quickly before we run out of time. There was a strange turn of events, not only in this hearing, but in another. Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who said he was honored to work with Jeff Sessions on a piece of civil rights legislation back in February, attacked him this week, urging his Senate colleagues to reject Sessions' nomination. Watch this.
Senator Sessions has not demonstrated a commitment to a central requisite of the job, to aggressively pursue the congressional mandate of civil rights, equal rights, and justice for all of our citizens. In fact, at numerous times in his career, he has demonstrated a hostility towards these convictions and has worked to frustrate attempts to advance these ideals. The next Attorney General must bring hope and healing to this country. And this demands a more courageous empathy than Senator Sessions' record demonstrates.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, his testimony against the nominee who was his best friend on civil rights legislation a few months ago?
First of all, I thought hope and healing was coming from the last 8 years of Barack Obama. That promise wasn't met. But listen, Cory Booker, he's running for president. He's trying to increase his stature within the national media. But Senator Sessions was the one who in Alabama helped desegregate the schools. He prosecuted the KKK with the death penalty. This has been a warrior to defend the law and defend everybody. Your race, religion, your color, your creed. He defends everyone. And I think that's been pretty clear through the confirmation
We don't have
hearings.
time to play the bite, but in Rex Tillerson's Secretary of State hearing, Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, tried to box him in and get him to call Vladimir Putin a war criminal. He seems to be grandstanding and preparing a 2020 campaign as well. Why are these guys using hearings to platform and position themselves for a potential run or launch a candidacy?
Because they are covered on every single network all across America, number one. But number two, listen, Marco was right to say, hey, we should be concerned about human rights. I join him in that concern. But he put Senator Sessions, Mr. Tillerson, in a hard place because, I mean, really, you got to be on the same page as your boss. And if you haven't figured these issues out yet together, you can't come out publicly and show division. So it was a bit unfair of Marco, though I agree with where his heart was going.
Yeah, but international tribunals determine war criminals. That's what we have, the Hague for. You don't have the Secretary of State, a diplomat, make those calls. He's got to negotiate. Russia's a major power.
Yeah, who's working for Donald Trump, who gets to call the ball, and Tillerson is implementing the Trump policy. So it was really an odd place to go, I thought.
Very quickly, in our remaining moments, there is an Inspector General investigation of James Comey, the FBI director. They are looking into those letters he issued during the waning days of the election, where he said, we found more Hillary Clinton emails and we're investigating them. Later, he retracted some of that after they did an investigation. A problem, or is this natural inquiry into activities?
Take a look. Look at not just what Comey did with the information that he had, But take a look at the Department of Justice's investigation into the Hillary Clinton emails and whether it was right to not prosecute or whether they should have prosecuted, and was politics being played with those decisions. If it was any other American but for Hillary Clinton, would charges have been brought? That should be the investigation, and hopefully we'll get some transparency.
So you would support this Comey investigation?
Listen, I'm okay with it. Transparency is a good thing, and especially around politics, we want to make sure that people have the best interests of America, not of a political party, as they engage in decisions that are made, especially during campaign times.
Congressman Sean Duffy, thank you for
Raymond,
being here.
good to
We'll
see
see
you
you next time.